Hello everybody, and thanks for clicking on this video. This is the episode 3 and 4 reaction to the Chinese drama that was filmed in 2020 called Detective. And yes, I keep having to repeat the fact that it's a Chinese drama and that it was filmed in 2020 because just the name Detective brings up so many different shows and so many different movies and so many different stories, etc., that you're like, how do I find the correct one? Which is why I keep popping up that same picture to show you which one I'm talking about and where to find it. And oops, all this time I've been saying you can go to ichia.com to find it. That's not the address. That's the full name of it. The actual address itself is just plain. That's where you can go to find Detective and watch it. I don't know if you can find it somewhere else, but go watch it there. It's free. So yeah, I'm doing this reaction, and apparently I'm doing it for myself since nobody's watched the other videos that I put up except the character overall one. I don't know who watched that one, and I don't know who liked the video, but thank you for doing that. Now watch the others. Okay, anyway, I'm trying to keep these short. So today's reaction is from episode 3 and episode 4, and I'm in my room today, so I'm talking slightly quieter because my sister's out there with headphones on, and my shoulder hurts, so I'm sorry that I keep pressing on it. I don't know why it hurts. I think I slept on it wrong. Awkward. So, Detective, episode 3. Yeah, I'm doing this where I have like things that are established and or just plain observations that I made, things I specifically liked, things I specifically did not like, and then questions I had. Some of the questions are just about other random stuff. A lot of them are about d.i.d and how d.i.d works, because I myself do not have d.i.d and I don't want to be spreading misinformation about it. I liked the way they had these two characters interacting, Tan and Mir. I nicknamed him Mir. The show itself does not ever explicitly say what this alter's name is. All of this is in my introduction video. Oh, my shoulder, I'm sorry. Ouch. What was I saying? Yeah, so those are the categories that I'm working with. Most of the questions are about d.i.d, some of them are about other random stuff, and some of them are about like the story itself and the things that it never clarified. So, I'm doing this reaction not specifically to the d.i.d because I don't know how accurate the show is in the representation of it. I know for a fact that they did skim over a lot of stuff. I know that they made it kind of difficult to know because they barely show much amnesia happening at all. They barely show any dissociation happening at all, except when it comes to what the medication makes happen. The medication itself is another thing. Trigger warning for that, because this show uses and misuses medication the whole way through it, and it's claiming that the medication can suppress an alter. I don't know if that's the whole reason he's being suppressed or if that's only part of the reason he's being suppressed, but I said in the other videos I don't think that's possible to suppress an alter with medications, but I don't know. That is one of my questions to any system that happens to see this, or any anybody that studied d.i.d and stuff like that. If you can tell me what are the effects of medication on d.i.d, is it even remotely possible to have any kind of suppression of an alter through medication? Because that's what this show does. So yeah, but my reaction is more to the characters and their interactions with each other, just as like, because I'm a human being and I know like relationships and people and like inner workings of people themselves and stuff like that. That's what I'm like highly interested in. Episode 3, things that are established. I forgot to mention in episode 2 that Tan believes that its stress itself is a trigger that brings Mir forward. This does seem to be the case throughout the show, except in episode 26. Stuff is weird by then, and I have questions, so we'll get there from episode 26. But through most of this show, Tan in episode 2 says that he believes the reason his Mir is coming up more, kind of like coming forward more and being more vocal and all the rest of the stuff, is because Tan is getting more stressed recently, and that does seem to be the case throughout the show. Stress itself seems to be one of the triggers that brings Mir forward. So I guess thing number 1 from this episode, Tan and Dapan, who claims to know Tan better than anyone else, right near the beginning of this episode, that 1 and 2, Tan doesn't want to marry Jajan because of Mir, and doesn't even want to tell her about him, all for the same reason. The closer she sticks to Tan while Mir is still around, if Mir ever comes out, what if Jajan falls in love with him instead of Tan? This would be the end of the world. Yeah, we're doing a walkthrough here. There's going to be tons and tons of spoilers. Be aware of that. So if you don't want spoilers, go watch the show first and then come back. Through observations from the rest of the show, and I know we're skipping ahead, but spoilers are spoilers, it seems like it would be the end of the world because Tan seems to center the majority of his worth around two things: his skill as a detective and his affection for Jajan. Without both of those things, as we see, he falls apart. Number 2, I don't know if the show ever makes it clear what Mirror centers his own worth around, but it does make it abundantly obvious that he enjoys being a detective as much as Tan does. Which to me doesn't quite make sense. If he's just a pure evil person, why on earth does he like catching bad guys? How does that fit together? We see in this episode that Mirror seems to be even quicker than Tan is at finding all the answers, and Mirror himself says that it's because Tan has purposeful blinders on. Observations I made while watching the show. Number 1, you find out later, this flashback, this is the opening scene for episodes 2, 3, 4. They show you the progression of it in the openings of these 3 episodes. And we see later on that it is an event that follows after this other memory that they spend way more time with. But so far, it's the first time that we see Mirror fronting. At least I assume it's Mirror. And while I'm sure the scene is implying he's evil, to me, he came out to stop the abuse. He goes to an extreme, yes, although we haven't seen the full extreme he goes to yet, but I don't see this as evil. He literally came out to protect the body. He literally came out to stop the abuse because this was getting insanely out of hand. That scene, by the way, is nowhere near as graphic as it would have been in real life if he was actually getting hit with a whip like that. Like, I won't describe what he should have looked like, but you can imagine if you know anything about what it's like to be whipped. Especially like that for that long. Number 2, observation. Remember I said Tan kind of brought Jajan putting that one condition on her backing off the engagement deal on himself? I think I said that back on the character thing. Yeah. Tan is afraid to talk to her about Mirror, so he avoids the entire situation by running away. He does this multiple times throughout the show. I forgot to say that as one of his character flaws. He is a major avoider. He avoids everything. That's how he deals with stuff, is avoiding it. That's what he does. I mean, I do that tons too, but it is a flaw. It's not good. And sometimes it's a coping mechanism, and sometimes it's a needed coping mechanism, but it should not be what you rely on, always, for everything. He, avoids everything. The more afraid of it he is, the more he avoids it and doesn't deal with it. He just avoids it. This would upset me too. And on top of that, Tan lies to Jajan while leaving the city. So really, it's understandable she's going to make him promise not to run away again. 3, I know its point is to be a comedic scene, but there's 2 ways to look at Tan not recognizing Jajan when he walks into this inn. Either it's the biggest fail ever, considering how quickly he suspects Changmin of being the assassin when he barely caught a glimpse of him at the end of the dark alley. So far away, in the dark, and he claims he can tell he kind of resembles the assassin. Yet he can't recognize Jajan's shape when he literally grew up with her. My sister and I talk about this quite a lot, how, easily we can recognize the people that we love. It doesn't take much, and we know it's a family member. We know which family member. My sister used to be able to tell who was walking down the stairs just by the way they walked down the stairs. So it's a major fail. Or, the other way to look at this is that it's proof of how much Tan has been avoiding her for the past 10 years of his life, even though he definitely loves her, because he loves her and is so afraid and confused because of having Mirror there. So there's 2 ways to look at that scene. So take that how you want. Number 4, Jajan's temper. The point of all of this comes up later on, but just notice the extreme response she has. What gives her the right, no matter how angry she is, to shoot an arrow at the door right between Tan and Tapan's faces? Just remember that extreme because, yeah, it comes up later. 5, it's a thing. It's a real thing. This fight breaks out in a hotel restaurant, and only our main characters turn around to see what's going on. Beats me. Number 6, acting that's too good. I can't put this in a like or a dislike. That older brother crying over his younger brother's death, I had to look away from his face. I couldn't look at him. That acting was way too good. Ouch. my heart. Because of things, life experience, that was real. Oh, that was too real. Ow, 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 ow. I couldn't look at him for very long. I had to, like, try hard not to look at him. What I specifically liked about this episode: they don't just flippantly hand off medication. They go over the correct way to use it, as well as the dangers of misusing it. And also that they make it clear that the side effects will harm both Mir and Tan because they share the same brain. 2. Tan and Dapan's test of teamwork. Acting! Who was acting? But also, Dapan, honestly, why did you tell Jajan exactly where you were going? It's apparent that he knows her fairly well too, and yet, trying to distract her so that they can escape, he literally tells her exactly where they're going, and then he's shocked when she shows up there. 3. If you laugh, I'll laugh, and that would be awkward. That was just so funny. Relatable. Number 4. Just tell me what really happened and I'll believe you. Dapan, that is so lazy, but also that is so cute. The friendship between Dapan and Tan is just so cute and so cool. That is one of the main things I love about this show, those two and their relationship. Yay. And 3, actually, because like Dapan with Mirror too. I wish we'd seen more of that. You'll see. What I specifically didn't like: 1. The incredible mixed message during the church conversation. And this is trigger warning if you have any issues with religion, because this gets into that. I can't tell how much of the real dialogue is being lost in translation, how much of it is misunderstanding about d.i.d. purely because of the time period, which is the year 1911, I forgot to say, and how much of it is wrong information about d.i.d. on the part of the screenwriters. And that makes me uncomfortable. And also makes it impossible for me to unpack this conversation any more than this, even though the conversation is one of the most important ones leading the way for Tan's feelings and behaviors toward Mir. What I have questions about: Number 1, the eyes in the flashback at the beginning of this episode. Was that pure special effects so we could see this wasn't Tan? Through this whole show, I can't tell exactly what, but they definitely did something to Mir's eyes when he fronts. And even not when he fronts, even when he's in the inner world, they did something to his eyes. There's some kind of, he's wearing some kind of contacts or something. They made his entire eyes look bigger and blacker. Most likely, they did this so that the audience can tell the difference between Tan and Mir at all times. Spoilers. When Mir actually fronts, they don't have his voice echoing. Whenever it's in the inner world, Mir's voice always echoes. So that's one way to tell the difference when they're in the inner world, which one's which. But they also do this thing with his eyes. However, this is the only time they make his eyes ripple with light reflections like that. So is it an extra special effect that they did this time and then decided not to do it again? Or, a question I have from later in the show, is it possible this altar isn't Mir? And that's letting us know that it isn't Mir? Because, I don't know, I think it's supposed to be, considering most other evidence. Like, for instance, the timing of it, and like, everything else seems to point that this is Mir. That's the only thing that makes me question if it actually was, is the fact that they do this with his eyes and they never ever do that anywhere else. Because yeah, we do see Mir as a kid at least one other time. So the church the church plus medication, where do I even start? Cat. The church plus medication, where do I start? Number 1, Tan is saying he's coming out more, the meds aren't working, and I'm still hallucinating his appearance in the mirror. Why on earth are they sitting in a confession booth while he's talking about this? Number 2, is it because of the time period that they have Tan going to a church to talk about his mental health, where mental health causes deferred to the church back then? Or was this a personal choice of Tan's for some reason? Maybe because the priest is a foreigner and the meds are foreign, whereas the hospital wouldn't have those connections? Like, why is he going to a priest to get this medication? Even though the medication itself did come from a doctor, I don't understand why he's going to the church for this. Is it because of the time period? Is it because of the culture? Number 3, what exactly is being said about this medication? They said a real doctor is experimenting back in the UK to come up with these pills, so why did the priest suspect it wouldn't work? What is the implications of this? Did the priest think it wouldn't work long, or just not the way they thought? Why? And if either of those are true, why did he go along with any of this? Especially since he has another idea all of a sudden, i.e. talking to Mir to find out what he knows that Tan doesn't, i.e. why does Mir exist, and for crying out loud, why wasn't this the first suggestion that he had before medication? How long has he known that Tan is taking this medication? How long has he been going along with it? And he's only now bringing this up. I don't get it. Number 4, how long has Tan actually been on these medications? Going back to that question of how well does Tan actually know Mirror? When did he start taking these medications? Why did he start taking these medications? What was the trigger for all of that? How many times have they actually interacted before? And what kind of interactions does they actually have? Number 5, the line about Mirror taking over. Translations, man. Was Tan saying it is a definitive thing? Or the priest? Were either one of them saying that it's a definitive thing that Mirror is definitely going to take over and completely suppress Tan? Or was Tan questioning, is that even his intent? Those are a lot of questions, and most of them are because of that conversation in the church that I don't know because of translations. And this is already 19 minutes, but I'm going to go on to episode 4. Things established and or just observations that I made about episode 4. Number 1, although it was a quiet talk with a quiet start, which I actually really liked because, again, Tan can hear Mirror and he's listening to him and interacting with him before he looks at the mirror. Although it was a quiet talk with a quiet start, the ending of Tan and Mirror's conversation seems purely based on Tan not liking Mirror's opinion, because it comes from Mirror, which is pretty much what Mirror said, with Tan's purposeful blinders in place. So Tan falls back on forcing Mirror to go away, though it seems something about his need to pursue justice that the minute Dapan walks in, he asks him for his opinion on what Mirror said. Mirror did say in the first episode, paraphrase because I can't remember exactly, even if you hate me, you have to take the case seriously. So is that why he asked Dapan? Just in case, even though he seems to hate this idea? So, and by the way, this was the first time Tan uses the new medication. Probably hence Mirror's shock and the crack in the mirror, showing that this medication is different and a lot stronger than what he's been using up until this point. Number 2, this old lady and her familiarity with this hotel. Used here to cause confusion in the case, the reason for it is given ages from now. So it's like really funny that they have this woman here and they keep commenting on how familiar she is with this hotel and they doubt whether she's blind or not, because how does a blind lady walk up the stairs that fast and know where she's going and not be tripping at all this rest of this stuff? It is hilarious that, okay, they use it as a confusion here, but it's hilarious that it actually ties in. So like, talk about only the one thing in this entire show coming out of left field. Everything else is so tied together. It's just, wow. Number 3, translation errors. The waiter did not say, how did you find this? He said something more like, this is impossible. And yes, that's significant difference for this case. Like, number 4, the way they are saying that guy was holding the knife when he cut his brother is so wrong. Just have to say that. It doesn't match the wound at all. If he's holding the knife like this and stabbing down like that, that's not what the wound would look like. He'd have to be holding the knife like this and slashing him this way for it to look like that. Not holding it like this and slashing him this way. Like, come on, guys. That. What I specifically liked about this episode, 1, the way Tan asks questions. He doesn't tell the person he's asking who said what they saw, and even waits until the timing is right to ask about what he heard. In other words, he's protecting witnesses. He's a really good detective. Number 2, the most exciting part of this episode for me, entering the inner world for the first time, / the interaction between Tan and Mirror when they both have bodies. That part's exciting to me, to see that. Number 3, the transition between entering and leaving the inner world. I know most of it was special effects for our sake, and interestingly enough, as seen from other parts of the show, they actually do blur the lines between what Tan is physically doing with the body and what he's doing inside his head, and I personally find it interesting. I sincerely hope it isn't an effect that real systems find offensive, and also, so I don't repeat myself in the questions part of it, I'll just say it here, not sure why Mirror faded out, apart from the whole blending world happening. Like, things are happening in both places at once. Does it ever happen, anything like this for real systems? Is this one of the few places the show gives us their version of dissociation? This whole blending of worlds and how it blended, because it seemed like he was inside the inner world, but at the same time his physical body was also moving, doing stuff. The team cooking food. I don't know why. Maybe it's the music. Speaking of like music influencing how you feel. No, it's more than that, but like whatever. I don't know how to describe why. I just liked that tiny clip of them working together to cook everyone hot food. I really liked it. What I specifically disliked, the case got a little confusing. This is not the first time I'll mention it, but here's the first time we see over-explaining / rehashing happening. They seem to firmly establish things and then undo it, and then undo it again, and anyway, moving on to what I had questions about. Number 1, what did Mir do to the son and father who were beating him / Tan? Did he just knock them out? Or did he actually somehow, I don't even know how he would do it, did he somehow kill them? Considering it kind of looked like they weren't breathing. Doesn't properly show us, so I'm not even sure. Question number 2, so going back to the question of how aware Mir is, did he happen to hear that whole conversation with the priest in the church? Does he know the priest told Tan to ask about the memories? If I remember later when Tan brings it up, it doesn't necessarily feel like it. So is this a proof that Mir isn't always co-con / aware? It is pretty much only when Tan is stressed, working on a case, facing his fear of fire, or spending time with Jajan, which counts as stress. Honestly, the show barely shows any amnesia at all, and I'm not sure how much is just not shown to us and how much is being misrepresented, because I know memory sharing is a thing, but this show does go a little heavy on knowing between authors, and I'm curious if they were being too unrealistic, or if it's just too much missing information, because the d.i.d. is not the focus of the show. So this has suddenly turned into an interesting ramble instead of just questions, but if anyone sees this and wants to ramble too, feel free. Let me know your thoughts on that questioning right there. Number 3 that I had a question about, that little snort of Mir's when Tan enters the inner world. I don't know why, I find it funny. And this isn't a really important question, but I'm just kind of curious why that was his reaction. Tan didn't look confused about entering the inner world. He didn't look confused about the fact he could do it, and he didn't look confused about how to do it. Mir said, come in. Tan hesitated because he wasn't sure if he could trust Mir, and then he went ahead and went in. So, has he been there before? Why did none of this confuse him? Why did he so easily and readily go in there? And what was Mir snorting over? Doesn't make it clear. So I'm just that teeny tiny little brief little thing there. I had questions and I'm intrigued by that. So that was episodes 3 and 4, and this one is now the longest one so far because I went back and added a little more of observations, etc. And because I had to yell at my cat because she was scratching on the door that I have closed so it's harder for Vicky to hear me. What are your thoughts? If you have answers to any of the questions I asked, if you have observations, anything that I missed while watching it that you had a better understanding of, anything at all that you want to comment on, please let me know. Leave comments if you feel safe doing that. And if you want to join in and say something, let me know. Thank you for watching. Bye. See you next time.
欢迎来到我的世界。